then that gives you the points of where we have, like you said, you accumulated. But it's always the kind of thing where we always, in psychology, we like to revert or regress back to what we already comfortable with. And North Node is opposed to the unknown, the challenging part that I like to look at it from that point, and where a person can look and achieve for. Now, when people come in the second level, you look at synastry, chart comparisons and composites, what have you. When people access or have planets that come near, they also give a stimulus, lesson, and contribution to helping you on that path. And what I like about it is that, when we have node changing signs, which recently we had from Capricorn now into Sagittarius, we're now getting into a point of where spiritual things and things of education as well can be expounded on. And for those who are knowing aware of where their North Nodes and happen to be in Sagittarius, well, they're going into return with their North Node. Like every 19 years, approximately, there is a great turnabout among one of these cycles. We have many of them, but every 19 years, one would be aware of a change in their life. Now, for example, the first one I can use to identify with that one is our first 18 years. Normally, if we come through the traditional educational cycle, approximately 17, 18 years, one graduates, which is around the same time of a new status, a new promotion, if you will, of their returning of the North Node. So we see the ongoing voyages of that certain pattern, like you said, in a practicality matter. That's my little 2 cents.
Okay. I wanted to elaborate further on some of the points you made. Okay.
Go ahead.
Clarity, because I want to simplify what you said. When you spoke about that there's a planet, it's dispositor. That's where I'll start at. So first, I'd like to explain that a dispositor is the energy source or the well from which the sign receives its qualities. Okay. It's like you have a radio in the middle of the floor in your room, but there's a wire to that radio. That wire goes into the wall. The source of power for that wire is the electricity coming from that plug. Well, each planet is the source of energy for that sign. That for whatever sign. For example, Aries is disposited by Mars. Any planet in the sign of Aries channels its energy in a martial type of fashion, and this will depend upon where Mars is in your chart. So you have to picture yourself sitting at a round table, okay, because that's your chart, and there are 12 different versions of you sitting at this table. And each one of those 12 parts of you uses a different energy source to express itself. Now, you might be sitting at the top end of the table, but your yo-yo is 3 feet down. I mean, and you have your weapon and your sword is in the third chair with a cord attached to it. So you operate basically through the third chair. And thus it would be for the planet. Now, in the case that he gave, if there's let's say that the North Node is in Gemini, but you happen to have the ruler of Gemini, which is Mercury, in Scorpio, then you would, being that the North Node represents your life lesson or your life goal, the purpose for you being here is to learn communication and correctness and to learn rational thought, to delve deeper into the powers of expressing oneself. That would be your primary fundamental purpose for being here, okay? Now, if it's in the sign of Scorpio, it is through a transformative, through a scorpionic, hence transformative process that lesson will be taught to you, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, Gemini also indicates brothers, sisters, and cousins, and Scorpio represents transforming deeply emotional experiences with the brothers and sisters if Mercury is there, like perhaps the death, the loss, or transformation there through the experience with one of the brothers or sisters. And therefore, this person, the brother or sister, because the North Node is placed in Gemini, brothers, sisters, cousins, neighbors, these are the people who will shape you. Now, the things that Gemini represents will also contribute to that end. All right? Gemini represents your immediate environment, also your neighborhood, also short trips, also dialogues and day-to-day contact. Okay? Now, I want to give a brief synopsis of that for like every single sign, but we don't really have the time for that. Unless, you know, if we get some callers that are going to come online, then we can demonstrate that, all right? But as the nodes stay in each sign for about 18 to 19 months, you know, people would have to be born over an 18-year period. We have to get 18 different callers in here, you know, or more from different, each one from a different year, which at this point is not going on. So we know we can elaborate a little bit further. When you said that the people come into your life whose planet will aspect your North Node, because the North Node is indicative of your purpose here and your the attainment of that purpose, and the means to which you're supposed to attain it is indicated by the sign and house position. Then a person whose Jupiter tries your North Node, then their good fortune or their guidance to you or their education or their open-minded optimism and overall joviality and things that are Jupiter indicated will assist you in the fulfillment of your North Node indication. However, if this person has, let's say, the same planet, Jupiter, squaring your North Node, then this sense of fun and games or this sense of humor or this sense of generosity or what else is Jupiter? This sense of broad-mindedness and education and the guiding factors that may come from them. It does not serve.
Too, if one that takes one, the philosophical view as well too, they would also be contrary to what you may or may identify with or like, but the squares also bring about the challenges that brings out that node, you know, that needs to be done, and those are kind of agitators, if you will, that bring that circumstances with vehicle by
propel you. Yeah, that propel you towards it willingly or unwillingly, basically.
Right, and it's the kind of thing that keeps our consciousness on a sharp edge, because it's the kind of thing that will manifest internally if one doesn't expound on itself or manifest it externally on circumstances that brings you up in squares, or like you said, dynamic aspects, you know, and they like to in your face say, you know, you're not avoiding me. It's like the guy that comes out the door and he's like yelling at you, screaming at you, and you have to confront this thing or this person or entity, wherever that might be. It could be as simple as this, something like somebody turning off your gas, you know, or water or something like that. That's a square. You have to address it really immediately, because you know what happens is going to affect your life right then and there. And these type of squares actually sometimes not as dynamic as that example, but they can bring about the agitation. It's like a person that you run into and you just can't say, darn, I can never get along with that particular entity, that person. That square manifestation could be, or opposition, depending on what we're talking about. We'll just use for example purposes, the square is bringing about that kind of thing to motivate you. That's the kind of person that says, oh, God, dog, I have to really get on top of my game, or I'm just going to either have to avoid a situation. One of the way is going to be a decision that has to be made, you know, and that's what I like about that particular aspect, too, as well. You see, and you learn your life lessons. And when you're armed with this kind of information, you kind of like make a better decision instead of just being compelled by that. You actually now can understand the flow or the groove, so to speak, of where that message is coming from, and then, you know, see that lesson coming. It's like Saturn. It's going to come up on you, maybe not this time, but next time, but it's coming back to you, know. So that's my little, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I would like to interject a little something here about the North Node. You know, for the newbies, for the new beginners, I would like to say that a lot of this information may be high tech or complex, or whatever the case may be, but a simple method that I would like to introduce is the idea that knowing your natal chart and where your planets are placed by degrees within the circle of 360 degrees is something that will definitely help you in your studying the science of cosmophysics. And I would like to add that one can notice when it comes to the North Node, there will be certain planets that are close to it, There will be certain planets in the natal chart or the birth chart or when you were born, how the picture of the skies were looking at the time of your birth.